Bond. You know the rest.
Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies is a 1997 James Bond film directed by Roger Spottiswoode, starring Pierce Brosnan, Michelle Yeoh, Terry Hatcher, and Jonathan Pryce. The film centers around Agent 007's newest assignment, where he is tasked to prevent a crazed media baron, Elliot Carver, from using a high-tech encoder to provoke a war between China and the United Kingdom so that he can gain immense profit from the media coverage. While on the mission, Bond ends up crossing paths with a Chinese special agent by the name of Wei Lin, and together they will need to join forces in order to stop Carver and prevent World War III. Well, this was bound to happen, me talking about James Bond. James Bond is one of my favorite movie franchises of all time. In fact, I have the Blu-ray collection right here. I've seen all the films numerous times. I have a lot of opinions and maybe some hot takes on numerous entries in the series. But today I want to talk about what I think is one of the more underrated entries. And I want to talk a little bit about Pierce Brosnan's tenure as Bond as a whole. The consensus amongst most Bond fans is that Brosnan himself was a great Bond, but he wasn't always in great Bond movies. GoldenEye is often seen by many, including myself, to be his most definitive Bond film, as well as one of the best Bond films of the entire franchise. Personally, I might even include it in my top 5. That's how awesome that movie is. He started out so strong, and then the following movies that came out have been fairly mixed amongst Bond fans. I know there are some people that really love The World Is Not Enough. Other people feel more mixed on it. I personally really like the movie, but it certainly has its flaws. And then there's Die Another Day, which is one of the most notorious Bond films and is constantly ranked as being maybe the worst of the entire franchise, if not very close to the bottom, and that seems to be pretty unanimous. But then there's Tomorrow Never Dies, which is a film that is often overlooked by a lot of Bond fans, and a lot of people kind of shrug at it like, it's kind of a generic action movie. I think the movie stands out for numerous different reasons. Number one, it's the shortest Bond movie of the entire franchise, under 2 hours long. The pacing of it is super fast from beginning to end. There's hardly any dull moments, and it has some of the best action sequences of the entire franchise. In particularly the BMW sequence where Bond is self-driving it in that parking structure and he's being chased by bad guys, and he's in the back seat on the phone, driving the car, firing weapons, and that scene is so awesome. If I did a list of like top 10 favorite Bond action sequences, that one might be in the top 3. That's how much I love it. And then there's Michelle Yeoh, who is, just like this movie, one of the most underrated Bond girls. She's one of the most capable, one of the most badass. In my opinion, she's what Agent XXX should have been in The Spy Who Loved Me. Hot take, I'm not the biggest fan of The Spy Who Loved Me. There's moments of that movie that are really good, but I just feel like that character in that film in particular is reduced to a damsel in distress in the third act, and she's meant to be like Bond's equivalent, but we don't see anything like that in that movie. Can't say that for Tomorrow Never Dies. Michelle Yeoh gets shit done in this movie. She's awesome. I'm just a big Michelle Yeoh fan in general. But I will say the downside is that her chemistry with Pierce Brosnan and vice versa, it's not really the best. It's not terrible, but their chemistry does feel a little bit forced. And, if a Bond girl is going to be in a Bond movie, there has to be some sort of romantic connection. And I feel like this is one of the few times where it's like there didn't need to be. They could have just been equals. They could have been friendly with one another. There didn't need to be that forced romantic connection between the two. But that's a very small complaint in what is, I think, still a terrific Bond girl and a very underrated Bond movie. Let's talk about Jonathan Pryce, Elliot Carver in Tomorrow Never Dies, because as far as plot goes, this is probably the most interesting aspect of Tomorrow Never Dies, and this part of the movie has aged pretty well. Now, on the surface, Elliot Carver looks like a classic, almost Roger Moore era Bond. He's overtly campy, eccentric, over the top. That's how Jonathan Pryce plays it. But he is a crazy media person. where he wants to control the media. He wants to gain profit from fear and division, and he wants headlines that sell. This is the aspect of Tomorrow Never Dies that has aged surprisingly well, because it's a hot topic that most people don't trust the media nowadays. And this was a turning point from COVID and from all the craziness that happened after that. There have been numerous studies and articles to show that the people's faith in the media is at an all-time low. And that's actually made this movie aged for the better. Elliot Carver doesn't really care about giving people proper information. He cares about selling headlines, and that's why he wants to use this encoder to start a war so he can make millions and millions of dollars off of it. And it's an interesting premise for a Bond movie that it's not your average I just want to take over the world plot. It has a little bit more of a satire angle to it. At least that's how it seems nowadays. Jonathan Pryce isn't one of the best Bond villains, but he's a fun one, and he's clearly having a ball, and he just kind of adds to the overall entertainment value of this movie. Like I said, this is maybe one of the most action-packed Bond movies from beginning to end. It just... From the opening alone, with the whole jet pilot sequence, and then just from there's the motorcycle chase where Bond and Wei Lin have to ride a motorcycle together because they're handcuffed, and that's an extremely fun sequence. There's very inventive action moments in this movie. Of course, it's not a perfect movie. Terry Hatcher is kind of useless in this movie. She's portrayed as... one of Bond's older flames, and there's supposed to be like an intense connection between them, but she is more or less just a plot device for Bond to get more motivation to hate Elliot Carver. It's fine, but it's not amazing. So, I mean, that's a flaw. But overall, I just think this is an incredibly solid, fun James Bond movie. It's not as good as GoldenEye. I think it's definitely better than Die Another Day, and also better than The World's Not Enough. I think this is a Bond film that deserves a second chance. And even if you're not a James Bond fan, but you like awesome action and spy espionage stuff, check this movie out. Like, Pierce Brosnan's movies all work as standalone Bond films. You don't need to watch them in order. So, I recommend Tomorrow Never Dies. I feel that this is one of the most underrated Bond movies, and definitely Brosnan's most underrated. But tell me what you guys think. James Bond fans, let me know if you want to hear me do more Bond reviews. I might do a ranking in the future. Anyway, thanks for watching.